And we're back.
Yes, back with Greg. That sounds like a serious thing. Well, who knows? It might become one.
We'll see.
Anyway, what we want to talk about this time is one of the very common mistakes that particularly beginners do, but in later stages it can still potentially happen sometimes, and that is aiming for the opponent's sword rather than the opponent. So in most cases that's a bad idea. There are a couple of exceptions which we'll talk about in a moment. So if he steps in with a cut and I just do this, I'm aiming for his sword, which causes problems. One of them is this. So what happened here is I was just basically pushing his sword to the side, which ends up powering his follow-up cut. Leaves me totally exposed. And he has no reason to stop with what he's doing because I'm not actually threatening him.
So the primary idea that we're covering here is the idea of crossing the line and how to do it properly and how to do it wrong. When we're attacking our opponent's weapon, we're doing it wrong. We're not presenting that threat that we need to remain safe when we're initiating an attack. When we're crossing the line, what we want to do is make sure that this line, the straight line between my opponent and I, this is the line we're talking about right now. When I'm attacking, if I attack in a straight vertical fashion from my right shoulder to his left, okay, this isn't keeping me safe because I'm not crossing the center line. If he throws a counter stroke, I become vulnerable. Alternatively, when I cut, my weapon comes in and crosses that center line. Now, naturally, by throwing the attack at his head, I'm putting my sword into a position that keeps me safe against the counterattack.
So if I don't cross the line and he does, this is what happens. It just blows my sword aside and it strikes me at the same time. If both of us cross the line, we end up in this equal position from where we can do other things.
One of the major exceptions to the don't attack the sword, though arguably we're presenting some threat as it comes forward. Typically thrown against rising cuts, where we like it against rising cuts. I particularly like it against rising cuts. So from here as I come out, the blade falls across the line. So this is still crossing the line. We're just not presenting the same sort of threat. And from here, typically, especially with Messer, you'll see a winding play.
Another option which this can happen is if he hangs out a long point and I come in, this again is not actually aiming at him, but at the weapon, but it displaces the weapon and then I can follow up. So there are exceptions, but generally, if you aim just for the weapon, you're in trouble.
And typically, even in the cases of those exceptions, you're going to be crossing the line like we were talking about earlier as well. You can't throw a crump straight. It's the crooked cut for a reason.
Yeah. Another example is with rapier. So if he does a thrust and I just do this sort of windshield wiper, this is what happens. So in this case, I'm not actually threatening him. I'm just kind of pushing his rapier to the side, which is not the way to do it. The way to do it, and I'm not particularly good with rapier, but the way to do it is when the thrust comes in, I actually displace it and I do a thrust of my own. So I attack at the same time. Much more effective and doesn't leave me open to these sorts of shenanigans.
And crosses the line.
And crosses the line. There we go. Okay. So yeah, just a little bit about that. Hope you found that interesting and thanks for watching.
Yeah,
and
thanks
for the help, Greg.
Yeah, happy to.